a day after the shooting in Lafayette, we do know a little bit about John Russell Houser, the man who conducted the shooting, based on some of his social media activity, searches of where he'd been living, knowledge of what had happened to him in the past 10 years. And so we want to read some of his quasi-manifestos, not because he deserves to be covered in this way, but because I believe that people being pushed politically and ideologically to believe some of the things that they do, when you combine that with mental illness, that is a very dangerous mix indeed. And so here are some of the things that John Russell Houser had said. America is so sick that I now believe it to be the enemy of the world. I know next to nothing about Iran, but the little I do know tells me that they are far higher morally than this financially failing filth farm. He also tweeted, only 2 tweets, if you don't think the internet is censored, try reading a newspaper from a country that hates liberals the way I do. So very clear there. Fox News is going to have a harder time portraying him as a liberal as they often try to. The other tweet, Westboro Baptist Church may be the last real church in America. Members not brainwashed. So there's some backtracking there perhaps. His Facebook account shows just 2 likes. The I Hate Liberals political organization, which uses an avatar that reads Stand with Rand, and the Crossroads Irish American Festival, although I don't hold them personally accountable in this regard. Posts on other forums reveal Houser's belief that the U.S. was racist against white people, sterilization should be mandatory for welfare recipients, and former Ku Klux Klan leader David Duke was a more historically significant figure than the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. He also said, by the way, that Hitler accomplished far more than any other through pragmatically forming. And so the reason I think this is significant is, well, I mean, we bring up, obviously, and we should, anytime a mass shooting like this happens, anytime there's violence conducted through the use of firearms, we wonder what could have been done to make it more difficult for those guns to have been attained, knowing that, yes, you can get a knife, but it's harder to kill a lot of people with a knife than it is with a gun. But in the same way that having a gun can make something like this more likely, having certain beliefs about the world, certain fatalistic beliefs about the end times, he wrote in a lot of his writings about preparing for the apocalypse. If somebody believes those sorts of things, you can't help but imagine that that influences the likelihood that they'll conduct violence. And the idea that, I mean, we can't look at one crazy person and look at one member, an author, or a member of the media, or a pundit, or whatever, and draw a direct line between those two, however obvious the evidence might seem. But the idea that they can't have an evidence is insane. And if they can't have an evidence, if all these people in the media, all the people writing their blogs and tweeting and writing their books and going on Fox News and other networks can't influence people's beliefs at all, then what the fuck are they doing it for? We know they do. That's why we do what we do, because we believe that we can positively influence someone. But there is a dark side to that. And this guy believes that liberals deserve to die, believes that the one thing you should do to prepare for the apocalypse is to get sweet-tasting poison you can put in the food of your family so that they'll die painlessly in the chaos to come. That's an insane person, but an insane person that has been pushed off, directed in a particular direction, and you can't be totally surprised when violence like this happens.
Well, it's the same thing. You get, when it's a positive, well, what they feel, a lot of people, the influencers, when it's a positive thing you think you've just done, then you take credit. I mean, you'll hear about how Fox News, specifically Bill O'Reilly, you know, we got this many viewers, the rest of these guys are losers, they can't even compare to me. But then when he's pushed someone like the killer from George Tiller, the doctor, or when things like this happen and they want to deflect, oh, he didn't have tons of my books in his library before he went on his killing spree. When it's something that
Well, by the way, all his books are about killing Lincoln, killing Kennedy.
That's a good point. Killing Jesus.
Killing Jesus.
Yeah.
All his books start with the word killing. So,
and he Tiller the baby killer. And
he went through the whole. And then so when it comes up, it's not my fault. That didn't happen because of me. No one watches my show.
Yeah.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah, and so I think that, look, we have freedom of speech. You can express basically whatever thoughts you want with some certain specific limitations. But the idea that you shouldn't exercise those rights, those privileges that you've been granted through the country that we have, the structure that we have, that you shouldn't have to exercise them in a somewhat responsible way, perhaps not portraying every disagreement between political parties as a matter of life and death, perhaps not portraying everything that happens in the country as your country being stolen from you, that sort of thing, that racial groups are moving into your territory, they're stealing your women, they're stealing your jobs, that religious groups are creeping across the border. Portraying everything as a matter of life and death could lead people to believe that this is a matter of life and death. That's a crazy thought, I know.
After saying everything is a condition of life or death, then saying, you know, I'm going to protect my life. What does that mean? I mean,
And then always talking about guns specifically.
They said blatantly.
Always.
Yeah.
It's adding it up and then leaving the equal sign and leaving it blank, going, you fill in the blank for me.
Yeah.
You know
And they
what
do
that
fill in the
is.
blank, but they
Yeah.
fill it in with violence.